Hello. Hellos. Oh. Hi. I feel like I'm hosting a party and like the first guests come and you don't know what to say. It's like kind of awkward. Also, I'm so nervous. Like, you guys have supported me so much and shared and all of that. Now I really don't want to disappoint you. Oopsie doopsie. Alright, I think, so I'm just going to talk to you guys a little bit about what's going to happen today, because I'd like to actually start at like 11:01 or 11:02, all German timing, because there's a lot we can speak about today. Like, I have been crossing out and deleting parts from my script because it's just too much. There's so much that's like the basic, or, you know, where I could go from the basics, but what I'm going to try to do today is just for everybody who is here, no matter what you feed, no matter how much you already know, I hope that after this hour you can go and you can actually like make a little change in your next bowl for your cat or dog. So I'm not, you know, as always, the disclaimer for Real Talk is I am not a veterinarian. I'm just a dumb lawyer who actually is obsessed with pet nutrition. And so anyway, like, I'm not a veterinarian and I would never advise against anything like medication and stuff. I just think that very often we have a gap in taking care of our pets where it goes from nothing to a little issue to a veterinarian immediately. And I hope that I can just help you kind of not having to make that trip to the vet. And I don't think there's a competition between vet and nutrition. Vets are important, and that's the last I'm going to say about that. Everything I say is researched to a T. Everything should make sense, and if it doesn't, please interrupt me or let me know. I hope I won't get confusing. I'm just going to start now. I'll be looking a little bit over here because there's my notes. I want to try to stick to them so that I don't go over time, as that's not possible on Instagram. Alrighty, then let's get back to the roots today. So again, after this real talk, I hope that you just go and you actually have some concrete ideas what to do. And I'm not talking what to order from Canine India. I'm talking what, like, understanding and having new ideas of your own and feeling safer in how you feed and what you feed. And maybe also gaining some motivation again to make changes if you've done that before and it hasn't worked out. Obviously, you can always come back to me and DM or me mail or book a consultation or whatever. Like, everybody knows how to reach me. Okie doke. So, whether you feed processed, home cooked, or raw, doesn't matter. I hope that there's going to be something interesting for you today. And to start off with, I will say there is absolutely not the perfect diet. Like, there just isn't. There's an average perfect. There's something that science and research has derived from nature. But, you know, as much as I try to refer to nature, our dogs and cats do not live in nature. They don't live in the wild. Our dogs and cats, even mine, who don't go to the veterinarian a lot, even they had to take, you know, certain medications because I get them spayed and neutered. So we cannot provide 100% the same life as in nature. But what we can do is do the very best we can with our situation. And to be able to find the perfect diet for your pet, because there is an individual perfect diet. There just isn't a perfect diet as in this is it. If you feed this, your dog will always be healthy, your cat will be fine. It doesn't exist. Anybody who promises you that is not correct. It doesn't exist. Just like for a human. It doesn't. Anyway, so to be able to find your own perfect, which doesn't have to be hard, you just need one tool, and obviously that is knowledge. If you have knowledge about certain basics in the diet and all, then, and yeah, the question that's just asked, if you can't feed fresh meat, can you go for other options? There are always several options. That's why I'm saying you have to consider your own situation. See, my dogs were fed very differently in Germany. Now that they're back in India, the diet is different again. And if I didn't know, right, and somebody had told me you need to feed venison, and I didn't know what venison does or why to feed it, and I would just have done it. It would have been good. Now I come back to India, venison is illegal. I can't go and say, hey, Modi ji, I'm sorry, but my dogs need venison, so can you make it legal? He won't do that, so I have to adapt to the situation. And with my knowledge, I know, okay, venison is rich in omega-6, venison is rich in particular nutrients, so let me go and check where I can get that in other shapes. And that's why I think considering your own situation and your pet situation is extremely important, or your streetie situation. If you have a streetie, you won't be able to feed a 100% balanced diet, but does that mean you shouldn't feed them? No, it doesn't. So if you ask me to, is it okay to feed rice? I will give you a completely different answer whether you ask me for your Rottweiler puppy that you just bought, or whether you have a starved indie that you don't know what to do and all you have is rice, or whether you have a cat with renal issues, or whether you have a 16-year-old dog who's had rice his whole life. My answer will always be completely different. So there is no yes or no in nutrition, I feel like, and in health. It's all about the individual body and organism and how it works. So I don't think any nutritionist or dietitian or anybody else will ever know your pet as well as you do. You are with them, you see the reactions, and it sometimes makes me a little bit sad when people send me a message saying, hey, I've been feeding this and that from Canine India for 2 years. My dogs are absolutely loving it and they've been so healthy with it. It's made such big changes. But now my neighbor told me that it's not good for dogs and that they will, have issues. And they just say, hey, is that right or not? And they get scared. And I'm like, dude, for 2 years you've been telling me your dog's been super healthy. Why listen to some rando telling you that it's going to cause issues? Nobody reads the whole studies. People take headlines and repeat them. They don't take responsibility for the stuff they put out sometimes. We all don't, but it's so important when it's about nutrition. And I know how much it impacts each and every one of us when we doubt ourselves and how we deal with our pets. So that's what I want to fight today and give you some knowledge. Okay, I'm blabbing. Let's get into something actual good. So we'll talk about all the different preparations of diets and how to individually address them, where you can make changes if you feed a certain diet. And then we'll also quickly talk about transitions and hopefully get some questions in. Basics. Balance. Balance is one of the most basic things, of course, before we even get to nutrients. To me, I always like to say there's two kinds of balances. One is, of course, that we need to make sure there's a balance between nutrients. We have to make sure that a certain profile of nutrients is in our pets or streeties' diet, and we need to make sure they're in the right combinations and ratios to be absorbable by the body. Because nothing you put in the body, you're not putting in a carrot and a vitamin will jump out and go to work. A carrot goes in the body, and then there's digestive enzymes, there's microflora, there's bacteria, there's all kinds of things happening. It's a lot of work before you even ever get any vitamins out of that carrot. So we're going to also look more at how to get those things out as easily as possible and supply them to your pets on a silver platter if possible. So balance of nutrients, very important. And then the second type of balance, which might rather be described as variety, is that it's not enough to just, supply a certain nutrient. You have to, or at best, you would supply it in different shapes and forms. Because, let's say iron, an essential mineral, right? It's for oxygen transport in the blood, it's essential. So if you want to supply iron, you can do spinach, you can do red meat, you can do spleen, you can do chicken, you can, all kinds of different things. But what's the difference between those? We'll talk a little bit about that, and it's quite important to understand. It's just the most important that you know how to match and mix certain ingredients. As an example, I've been hearing and reading a lot about people feeding eggshell powder. Now, that is one of these things that upsets me just a little bit, because when people, first of all, calcium is not a mineral that is deficient. Calcium is a very, very easily available kind of mineral. So typically that's not one that you'll have to take care of, particularly if your dog or cat needs extra calcium, okay, obviously we can supplement or look at why. Eggshells though, 100%, yes, they are calcium. But now if you just take it for that and start feeding eggshells, then you're basically counterproductive, because what you're doing is you're feeding calcium in a non-absorbable form. Calcium needs to bind to phosphorus. In a 2-to-1 ratio, they need to be there so that the body can make use of the calcium. Now, the egg yolk has elevated levels of phosphorus. So feeding a whole egg, you're going to have all the calcium, you're going to have everything. But feeding the eggshell powder every day, it just like in a dramatic, like long-term vision, can lead to calcification of arteries and can lead to renal issues, because you're feeding a mineral that can't be absorbed, so it needs to be flushed out by the kidneys. So it can be quite counterproductive. On the other hand, if you know how to match nutrients, and say your pet has a elevated phosphorus in the bloodstream, then feeding just eggshells might be a good idea, because you're giving the calcium that can pull out the phosphorus from the bloodstream. So as you can see, in one case, feeding eggshells will lead to issues, and in the other case, feeding eggshells can be a benefit. So if you ask somebody, hey, shall I feed eggshells, and they say yes or no, then you know they don't really know what they're talking. All right, then this is just the whole part about being bioavailable. It is not just about putting something in the bowl. It is making sure that something is available to the organism you're feeding, to your cat, to your dog, to whatever you're feeding. The total quantity of food a day should be just around 2.5% of the ideal body weight. Obviously, this is not for processed food, that has its own thing. But about 2.5% of the body weight is a good point to start from to feed your dog. So say, or your cat's probably more like 2%. So say you have a 10 kg dog, then you would go and feed about 250 grams of food total daily. This might differ, some people eat a lot and they're just skinny, and other people just, have a slower metabolism. So you need, again, to look at your pet and let them teach you. And if you have streeties you take care of, obviously it's a whole other business. Like, dogs can go up to 5 days without food as long as they have water. And the streeties show us, a little bit of on and off. If the situation asks for that, is completely okay. For the feeding times, how many times you feed, we've heard like a lot of research being like, once a day is the best, it's so healthy. Again, average, yes, it's quite good to feed your dog once a day if that's possible. For my girl, I feed her once a day. For my boy, if I don't feed him, a little bit of snacks in the night, a little bit of snacks in the morning, he'll throw a bile, or at least he'll be like not very happy. So I feed one of my dogs once a day, and the other one, actually, I'm a lazy mom, so I do Canine India, like crushed with some egg or whatever. It all depends on your pets, and if you have a small dog, then obviously they'll need more meals. They can't store as much. And if you have a dog with any digestive issues or any reflux or something, don't go for some research that says once a day. Do what is best for your pet. Just keep in mind what the perfect is. I'm sorry I'm speeding through. Please let me know if I'm getting confusing. So the basic rule for the ingredients or the contents of the bowl of your pet would be around 70% muscle meat, around 10% liver and other organs, 10% bone, and then vegetables and eggs, fruits and stuff like that. So this is basically just a copy of a whole prey diet, like what would happen in nature. If you have a whole animal, whether it's a cow or a goat or a quail, the bone to meat ratio will be about 70 to 10, and the organs will also be about 10%. So that's what we're trying to go for. And also keep in mind, organs and bones are super dense in nutrition, so feeding too much is not a good idea. Too much of a good thing also isn't good. But we'll get to that later again. Just it's really essential to have some sort of organ and some sort of bone in the diet, because organs they're like a natural multivitamin supplement. If you're feeding any kind of liver syrup or something, or multivitamin stuff, then you can probably just go and get like a couple of chicken organ thingies, fry them up and put them in your pet's bowl over some time, and they'll be not needing any supplement for multivitamins. Same, and minerals as well. and also organs, especially eyes and brains, but also liver of free-range animals, does contain vitamin D and other fat-soluble vitamins, which are, not that easy to attain. By bone, I mean, well, there's different ways to supply bone. So you don't have to go and feed your pet like all kinds of bones right away if you're uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable with your decisions. So you can do different things. You can obviously get bone powder from Canine India, or you can get bones and just make bone broth, or you can do fish broth. You can do even like whole eggs also give minerals. It's just not good as the only supply. So there's different ways of serving bones. If you have a home-cooked pet that's doing quite well, or you have streeties, then just taking, for example, poultry necks and dunking them in hot water, then feeding them, that's raw. That's a good idea, and it can be a good test. And also, if you go for poultry necks, you don't have to be so scared of splintering, because it sounds a bit gross, but if you imagine like a chicken or another poultry, the way that they, move their heads, they have teeny tiny bones all over. So there's no real choking hazard. And even if your pet swallows it, it's not that big a deal. But that's obviously something you have to assess. Are you comfortable with feeding a raw element or not? It depends on your particular pet. Chews in general are great. I won't get more into that. Chews are just a good idea to give, and marrow bones and all, they give great nutrition as well. Then let's move forward to the protein choices. Just a little word about different proteins, because we hear these cooling, warming, and neutral protein thing a lot, which actually comes from traditional Chinese medicine. But if we boil it down, break it down to what we're taking from it in pet nutrition, is that there are certain proteins which are generally more inflammatory, carry more inflammatory nutrients. That's chicken and mutton. There's a neutral protein like pork and buff and quail. There is cooling proteins like rabbit, duck, and fish. This is not massively important. It's good to have it in the back of your mind and kind of combine from these different categories. But yeah, I'm gonna skip through this. Yeah, let's talk about inflammation real quick. That is really important because inflammation is something people talk about when we don't really always understand what is inflammation. Inflammation is an essential life-saving process. We need inflammation. Inflammation is, when you have a cut or something and you see it starting to pulse and there's redness, swelling, that's because inflammation is taking space. It's basically your white blood cells, your body going and rushing and like closing down the scene of the emergency and fixing things. So after the work is done, after the inflammation that you feel is done, it'll go back to normal. So inflammation is basically the body's reaction to anything that's not supposed to be there, like any toxins, any tissue damage, anything is healed by inflammation in a healthy body. So more likely than not, when you have excessive inflammation, which is allergies, UTIs, atopic dermatitis, renal issues, blah, 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 all of that most likely boils down to an imbalance in the gut. And when you feed medication then you're going to suppress the immune reaction, you're going to suppress and not make the inflammation happen, which means that once you stop the medication, everything will go back to the way it was before and possibly get worse because you have not addressed the underlying issue, the imbalance, but you just suppress the reaction. So we've talked about this a lot, when there's the wrong kind of organisms in the gut, which happens when you feed the wrong things, then the gut lining can get leaky. When things swell, they go apart, and then the gut lining of your dog or cat is leaky and not tightly sealed anymore. Now you have an issue, because if the intestinal lining is damaged, then stuff from inside the gut can diffuse out into the bloodstream. Now, if there's, bacteria, dogs eat poop, cats also lick, stuff that's harmful kind of. And if these bacteria and things get into the gut and then they get into the bloodstream because you have an imbalance and you're feeding the wrong bacteria in the gut, then these pathogens and these like bad things will go into the entire body. Now, inflammation isn't enough anymore. The body can't heal it. Obviously, the renal system will try to flush out these toxins and flush out these bad things. But the renal system has an issue if it's not getting full protein because it's not getting the fuel to work. Now, the renal system might not be able to take care because there's also more stuff leaking out of the gut constantly, building up and building up. Then the skin will try to help as the biggest organ, and then it'll try to push out stuff, and you have rashes and sometimes diagnosed as atopic dermatitis, but it's actually just the skin trying to help the rest of the body get rid of toxins because there's an imbalance in the gut. And this can go everywhere. You know, if the kidneys don't work, you get kidney stones, you get gallbladder issues, you get UTIs, thyroid issues. All of it kind of often boils down back to inflammation and the imbalance in the gut and inflammation. So the good news is it's quite easy to balance this out. Like the example I gave with the eggshells, sometimes just knowing like a small bit of extra information can change everything. This is not a pitch for you to go and buy everything Canine India. This is just a pitch to think a little bit about the details and think like one step further than just the thing that you have, you know? So main nutrients that we need. Macronutrients, we all know, is protein, carbs, and fat. I would like to just quickly address that again because there's a lot of misconception about what protein, carbs, and fat are. So protein. Protein is a macronutrient, again, just like fat and carbs, and protein is massively important. Protein provides energy for the body, protein builds hormones, protein transmits messages to the brain, protein makes up enzymes, the pancreas uses protein to make digestive enzymes to digest the food. Everything is based on protein basically, which is why it is so massively important to understand what protein is and which one to feed or what kind of protein to feed. For knowing that, we have to understand what amino acids are. Amino acids, easily put, are just the building blocks of protein, right? Because nothing is just a thing. Like protein is not just something that I can give you, like protein is made up out of other things, and that's amino acids. So to know whether we have a good protein that's absorbable and that's right for us, we need to look at the amino acids. That's like, you know, building a house, you have to know what materials it's made of to know whether it's going to keep you safe in the environment you're in. So dogs can synthesize, which means just make in the body, can make a lot of amino acids, but they cannot make 10 amino acids. Cats cannot make 11. There's one extra taurine that cats cannot make, but dogs can. So anyway, these 10/11 amino acids need to be obtained through diet. And amino acids work like chains. They need to all be there to properly function. Excuse me. So animal and certain insect protein are complete and even deliver more than just the essentials. But not any animal protein will do. Insect protein is actually quite special because it does supply all the essentials, including omega-3, which is kind of hard to get other than that, except for fish and shellfish. We'll get to that in a second. Anyway, plant protein, right? Plant protein is not complete. It does not have the 11/10 amino acids that we need for our pets or streeties to thrive and to be bioavailable and all of that. It's like, if people, you know, doubt that, then the difference between what protein is, let's say chicken is high protein, correct? We can all agree. So now if you go out and you see a cow and you're like, I'm going to do it a favor. I'm going to feed it some chicken because it's high protein. That's ridiculous, right? That's a mad idea. But that shows you how different plant and meat protein is. Like a cow would never eat chicken. Same way, dogs and cats are not meant to eat grass, like vegetables. So of course they are beneficial and all of that, but keep in mind, protein is not protein. Somebody telling you, oh, this is high protein. What amino acids are it is the question you should ask back. All right, next is carbohydrates. Dogs and cats do not need simple carbs. They don't need rice. They don't need any of that. And that's another place where just carbohydrates is many things. It's not just one thing. So let's quickly talk. Simple carbohydrates are just sugar. They're simple sugars, which is refined grains or processed food, stuff like that. Starches are complex carbohydrates. Sounds fancy, but it's not much better. It's just chains of simple sugars. That's grains, and then wheat, for example, is something. And to be crunchy, kibble, for example, needs about 30% of starch at least. So you see that there's something there that shouldn't be there. Then fiber is a carbohydrate, which I'm not sure everybody is aware of. And fiber is something that we can definitely add to our pet's diet, even to a cat's diet. Fiber is not always fully digested. There is different types of fiber. There's insoluble and soluble fiber. Soluble fiber is kind of gels and attracts liquids and slows the digestion, so helps against diarrhea and all. Where the common misconception is feed overcooked rice when your pet has diarrhea. No, starch is the wrong carbohydrate. What you want is soluble fiber that gels up and locks in like the diarrhea. So soluble fiber is great because it also goes into the colon and there gets fermented by the beneficial bacteria, and short-chain fatty acids are produced. So that is a lot in vegetables and fruit, for example, is an easy way to supply soluble fiber, especially berries. Insoluble fiber adds bulk to the stool and kind of moves digestion quicker. So if your pet has constipation, adding some insoluble fiber such as vegetable peels are a good idea. If you're not sure what's going on with your pet and they have digestive upset, feed a whole pumpkin with peel, mashed, or feed some whole carrots with peel, apple with peel, because that gives insoluble and soluble fiber. So you get it all figured out then, and hopefully things will be back to normal. Consistency is very important in the diet, because if you do feed starches or grains or anything like that, then you have to make sure that every meal also has some whole food nutrients to stay in the body and nourish it longer. Rice, simple sugar, processed foods, they will make the blood sugar spike up and then drop down quickly, obviously, and that can lead to an irritable pet, and that can lead to your dog or cat being like nervous or unhappy or just irritable, just hangry. It's like as if you just ate a piece of white bread and then in the evening again another piece of white bread, you'd be like kind of unhappy. So just adding like a whole duck egg, or adding a little bit of a meal topper, or adding some bone broth, just a little bit of protein and nutrients that can last the body a while, will possibly make a big change if that's an issue of yours, that you have an irritable pet. Last macronutrient is the fats. Everybody's scared of fat. Fat is healthy. There's recent research by the Harvard veterinary department. Fats are actually healthy. It's just about what fats. Like we're talking about polyunsaturated and polysaturated fats. There's so many, like trans fats, processed fats, all that stuff. What we're talking about is whole good fats. This is omega-3 and omega-6 mainly. And omega-3 and omega-6 are both essential fats, which means we have to, or our pets, streeties, have to consume them through diet again. Everybody knows, well, omega-9, by the way, I'm not talking about because it's not essential and it doesn't matter right now. So everybody knows omega-3 is important, but there are different kinds of omega-3 again. Omega-3 is not just omega-3. So if you feed, for example, olive oil or hemp seed oil or anything like that for omega-3, any plant-based omega-3, it is in the shape of ALA, alpha-linoleic acid. That's not a bad thing, but that cannot be converted into the actual active form of omega-3, which are EPA and DHA. ALA cannot be converted to that by cats and dogs. So if you feed oils or plant-based omega-3, it is just stored as fat. It is just a source of energy, which is not bad, but it is not going to give you the anti-inflammatory and the benefits that omega-3 has. So that's just something that's hugely important to keep in mind, please. Actually, duck eggs have some omega-3, which is an option if you don't want fish. Also, I'll just say that right here, fish oil is not a good idea. Fish oil is typically rancid, it oxidizes. You have no idea where the fish is coming from that's in there. I would not do, rather than fish oil, I'd go and get them some seaweeds like spirulina or kelp, which also have some absorbable omega-3, but I would not do fish oil, please. Or you can do Canine. So EPA and DHA are super important for basically everything. Like, everything is important for everything because it all works together. But EPA and DHA are just so massively important, and they're lacking in so many diets, causing such massive issues. EPA can reduce inflammation. It really helps mobility. It can even be like a painkiller. It massively helps skin and coat. DHA is super important for cognitive health, for heart function, and for retinal health. So if your pet has seizures, for example, try to go for more bioavailable omega-3 DHA. It might just help. Omega-6 fatty acids, it's quite easy to attain. Most meats have omega-6, eggs have omega-6, and even some plant oils have omega-6. The availability, again, is different, but many sources are a good idea. One more time to summarize this nutrient bit. Each essential nutrient has its unique benefits or its unique purpose, kind of. Like, it's all like tools in a box, like all the nutrients. And for the body to be able to use them, just having a screw doesn't help you. You need the screwdriver. And just having a beautiful plank of wood doesn't help you. You need to have the nail and the hammer. So everything in the body just needs a little bit of all of this. And the more variety and the more difference you offer your pet, the more challenged the body is, the more use it can make out of it, to a point where, it's just a well-working body that's having fun and digesting stuff. So, and you might have fun feeding your pet because you're not bound to weigh out 2.5 grams of some supplement, but instead you just, do a little dip of this and a little sprinkle of that, and then it's all good and it's balanced and you know what you're doing. Anyway, so vitamins and minerals, again, we don't need to speak about it again. It's massively important. Also, vitamins are a good idea to add in the shape of like fresh fruit or something if you feed kibble or any other processed food, because vitamins do have antioxidant effects. Again, you can go for berries and you have a couple of things in one there. Different ideas. Vitamins are good, obviously. Minerals, also good, like, calcium is one. There's iron, there's selenium, there's zinc, there's all kinds of minerals. They do massively important jobs in the body, so don't spare them, especially when you have a larger breed dog. But do not go for large breed food or something, because often these large breed kibbles, they will have such elevated levels of calcium and all that's not absorbable that it long term leads to like heart issues and all. So just rather feed a little bit of whole egg than go for a large breed kibble. Anyway, so nutrients are a team, and you see that all of them kind of boil down into very little complexity once you get through the first layer of complexity. Because, like I mentioned in the beginning, if somebody says you have to feed venison to me, then I'm not faced by the fact that I can't get it. I'll just check what is venison and why would I need it. So if you look at a processed food diet, let's say you feed kibble or you feed chicken and rice, now you're missing some digestive enzymes, vitamins, and minerals because organ bone are not there. You know that you're lacking omega-3, you know that you're lacking certain amino acids, certain things you're lacking, collagen, glucosamine. So if you go and you think about it, one whole fish, right, has all of that. You get just some anchovy whole, and all of a sudden you have glucosamine, collagen, omega-3, vitamin D, minerals. All of that stuff is right there, and it's not that big a deal. It's not 500 different supplements. It can actually be fun. And if you make it a fish head, or if you decide to go for Canine India and get like a fish chewies bag, then not only do you have like 6 different nutrients ticked off, you also have your dental health ticked off, and you got a happy dog. Well, a cat would be happier with like mackerels or something, but it can be fun to just deduce and kind of see, oh, well, it's not that hard to feed better. I don't need to get a million things and spend like so much money. I can just, grab some seaweed, some kelp from my own stash, or I can just, get some of the fish heads and make a broth out of it after we eat, stuff like that. It doesn't have to be difficult. So now I would like to quickly talk about the preparations of food. So say, we're going to talk about processed, home-cooked, and then quickly about raw, as those are the main kind of preparation styles that I feel like, that are there. So for processed food, I have to say a little bit more. Just bear with me here. Sorry, let me just... Okay. So for processed food, I have to say a little bit more. Nutrients, proteins, enzymes, whatever you spoke about breaks down in the cooking process and in the heating process. That's quite extensive in the process of making commercial food. So additionally, the ingredients that these pet foods are made out of are typically like super low quality. Obviously, like if you look at who's making your pet food, it's probably like one of those huge companies that already put a lot of bad stuff in human food, and then the waste of that goes into the pet food and it's just cooked to oblivion, and then synthetic nutrients are added in again. So make sure that you read the label of your pet food and try to find one that has a protein like fish, rabbit, duck, lamb, whatever as the first ingredient. It's still not the most purest nutrition out there to feed processed, but better to get a good one than to get a like very cheaply made one. Also rotate your processed foods because synthetic nutrients are not as absorbable by the body, and there's a lot of byproduct that gets stored in the kidneys. So by rotating your kibble, you're kind of exposing less of one particular overdosed synthetic vitamin. There was a kibble in the US that had elevated vitamin D, like extra vitamin D. And vitamin D is a vitamin that is really icky to take artificially because it's so easily overdosed in synthetic form. So in the US there was this kibble, and a lot of cats especially died from renal failure because they got too much of the synthetic vitamin D. I'm not saying that will happen here, I'm just saying a slow buildup can happen. So why not just rotate from this food to the other and then, make some cycles. Might also be more fun for your pet. Then, 3 things you have to be aware of when you are feeding processed would be like the 3 main focuses you should have to adapt your diet if you want to. If you're feeding processed, is address the nutrient breakdown, address the omega-3 lag, and address dental health. So if you feed processed, nutrient breakdown, meaning vitamins, minerals, all that stuff breaks down in the cooking process of processed food. So add some raw grated vegetables for some like detoxing and some little bit of antioxidants. Add some like minced kind of vegetable smoothie, but raw. That will give fiber, that will help with digestive enzymes in the body, that will make some differences. Then go for any sort of fish-based food you can find. If you cannot buy fish, if you don't want to go for Canine India, go for canned sardines or something. Go for the ones that are in water. But anything you can do to add some omega-3, anything you can do that is actually whole food, like real food, real protein, maybe some boneless chicken. Maybe if you prepare meat for the family, you can keep the water, maybe spice it later or something and keep the water from the meat and add it to your pet's food. Some things, some small ideas always can go a long way. And for dental health and chewing, obviously you can let your pet chew on raw carrot or something, or coconut or something. It would be great if you could include some sort of animal protein chew, if it's Canine India or whether it's, if your dog or cat are fine with that, some raw bones, anything is good, but try to give them the happiness of chewing and try to give them the benefit of cleaning teeth. Sorry. So, home-cooked, homemade diet obviously has the huge benefit that you know exactly what goes into your pet's food because you're procuring it. When you order home-cooked meals from somewhere out, make sure that they have meat, organ, and bone. I see so many balanced meals that just don't have bone. That is not balanced. You need some sort of bone content, and if somebody says it's balanced without bone, then it's not. And then it's okay, not if you can't put the bone in, then just you have to be aware of that then you have to find another way to supply some bone, whether that's broth, whether that's juice, anything. But just in a home cooked diet, often I see that there's just no bone. And a mix of organs would also be great if you can get that or provide that. And if you purchase meals, make sure that there's no potatoes, no rice, no peas, because these fillers we don't you don't need to buy them. You can do that yourself. And also the peas and potatoes and all that just starchy again. It's not much better than feeding rice. Again, it's complex carbs against simple carbs, but both is just sugar. So be aware, heating food changes it. When you feed a home cooked diet, the food changes. The easiest way to illustrate that is if you look at an egg, right? A raw egg and then a fried egg. That's the example most used to show what denaturalization of protein is. Once you heat the egg over 100 degree, you will never be able to reverse that. You will never be able to make a raw egg out of a cooked egg again. Whereas you can take any raw egg in the world and make a cooked egg out of it. That is what happens when you heat protein. It changes structure. Now that's not a horrible thing, it's just something you have to be aware of. So again, for home cooked, my 3 things that you have to look at are nutrient breakdown from preparation, again, dental health, chewing and bones, and then balance. And what I mean by that is nutrient breakdown. For example, if you bake meat, if you put it in the oven or something like that, then you lose less nutrition than by boiling, for example. If you leave meat in one piece, you'll again lose less nutrients because, we do that in the West, we just take a piece of raw meat and we sear it on a very hot plate for just 10 seconds each side, and then we like to eat it like that. Well, I like to eat it like that. And it just kind of it locks the flavors and the juice inside, which is why I like it. But for our pets, it's great because you're also, by leaving it whole, kind of locking the nutrients inside that otherwise would rinse out into water or, go just steam away or whatever. So there's easy things you can do to up your nutrients content by 10-20% maybe, generously. By just baking, by using shorter cooking times. If you can't bake, then steam, steam it in the water vapor kind of. Or you can also fry, like I just said, if you want to go towards raw maybe, for example, or you just want to spice it up, you can fry anything. It also typically makes the dogs and cats eat more happily if something's fried because it just has this stronger flavor and texture kind of thing. So you can fry something on both sides and just a little bit of ghee or just a little bit of coconut oil or something, and then very short, and then sprinkle the ghee on top and make it a nice little gourmet meal, and that all the nutrients are locked inside. And even if there's a raw nucleus of the meat or whatever, then maybe you even get some digestive enzymes, and maybe you might even strengthen the gut to go raw at one point if you want to. Lastly, again, bones in the home cooked diet are really missing, and minerals are so important also for neurological health and not to have seizures at old age and stuff like that, also for bones and joints. So do not skip bones. If you get bone broth, if you get it delivered, make sure it jiggles. We don't want it to fold, we want it to jiggle, because that's when the collagen and all that good stuff, it gels. That's what we want. That's basically already half digested nutrients that can just go find its place in the body. Mucus linings and joints, there's a lot of good stuff with bone broth, but make sure it jiggles. You can also do bone powder, of course, from Canine India, obviously. Or if you get treats, right, and that you're feeding a home cooked diet, then maybe rather get rabbit bites or turkey bites than jerky, because then you got some bone content there and you're not having to buy anything extra. So, just small ideas to kind of make it easier to just include everything. For home cooked as well, it's great to add some like raw minced vegetables, minced fruit with peel, just for some digestive enzymes and to supply some extra antioxidants and all of that good stuff. For raw diets, I'll take a break, there's not much to say, and have some water. Yeah, for raw diet, obviously, not much to say except for, I forgot in the home cooked, balance. If you feed chicken and rice, that is not a balanced diet, and that is going to cause issues. I'm super sorry, but that is really important. Home cooked is good, but you have to make sure to cover the essential nutrients, like I mentioned before. Chicken and rice is missing a lot of things. You can easily, again, go in there with some whole fish. You can go in there with different things, like I mentioned above. There's options upon options. But you have to make sure to feed that. Otherwise, there will be inflammation and there will be these issues that I described from the gut lining opening up, and it builds up. You don't see it right away. So even if your dog or cat, I hope cats don't get rice, but even if your pet eats chicken and rice right now and they're doing fine, trust me, adding some fish in some way will be a game changer, like an actual game changer. And different story for street dogs. If you're feeding street dogs rice and chicken, you're awesome. Thank you. Please keep doing it. And also the Indian pariah, like the actual Indian street dogs, are the only dog species in the entire world who have ever been researched to get like a little bit of actual nutrition and make more, like get some minerals and stuff from grains, like from rice. So only Indian pariahs, they're so special in every way. But don't go for rice for your home dogs, or go for as little as possible, and make sure to mix and match. If you do feed starchy foods, you need extra anti-inflammatory foods. You need to go, cooling proteins, fish, rabbit, duck. You need to go water, anti-inflammatory. Sorry. Obviously, omega-3 is an anti-inflammatory nutrient, so you have to make sure to include those. I'm sorry, I'm just going to close that. That's fine. All right, okay, so now moving to raw, after making sure, even in a home-cooked diet, you need balance and variety. You cannot just depend on one thing. Then lastly, raw. Typically what raw feeders are missing is fiber. So adding just a little bit of fruit and vegetables to your pet's diet is always good, even if they're raw fed. It helps, detox a little bit. It helps challenge the system. It also helps with like antioxidants and all, because as much as we all try to go for farmed animals, I hope it's much more nutritious. Still, the air is polluted all over the world. There's just, even by the ocean here, like the air is not like it was 1,000 years ago. So it's good to just add some extra nutrients where you can. And if you see little things like my boy and my girl, my boy ate some soil yesterday, and my girl stole a shell I had collected from the beach and started chewing the shell. I was like, oops, I think I need to feed some extra minerals. I gave them both a chew bone, they finished it, they're good. Like, if you know kind of what's happening, it makes life a lot easier. Then last thing, I have a couple of ideas, just maybe that everybody could kind of just do right away. I don't know if you're looking for something to do. So probiotics, one word on probiotics. If you feed lactic probiotics, they typically don't make it through the stomach of the dog or cat. So curd or something like that it's not horrible. Like, you can feed it if your pet's fine with it, but it's not going to supply the probiotics that can ferment stuff in the colon. So if you feed probiotics, fermented foods are good. Do not feed fermented foods if your pet has fungus issues. I've seen people say skin issues, you need fermented foods. Because the yeast bacteria and the fungi, they actually like fermented foods as well. So don't do that. Go for soy-based probiotics in that case only. In any kind of indigestion, try to go for soy-based probiotics if you can. Obviously, we have them, and I absolutely like. I'm obsessed with them, so I have to push them. If you find them somewhere else, fine, go for it. Just try, please. Then raw mashed or juiced fruit. Oh my god, I think Coco wants to go walkies. Okay, so raw or mashed fruit, raw minced or mashed fruit or juices are really good because, again, like all these fruits and the peels have different kinds of fiber. Obviously, dogs cannot break up cellulose, but if we break it up for them, they do get the nutrition from it and the digestive enzymes. You know, that's what ripens fruits. They're basically digesting themselves because the digestive enzymes are at work, making it sweeter, setting the sugars and all the different nutrients free. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go to all these messages. Just give me 1 second to finish. Any seaweeds are good. You can crack some black pepper in the food. Ginger is nice. Bovine colostrum and quail, duck, or chicken eggs, all with the shell, would be good ideas. And then very lastly, transition. I need to address these real quick. When you introduce new foods, there's 3 things real quick that you have to be aware of. First of all, the pancreas, the body, needs to manufacture different digestive enzymes for different foods. So if you feed something new, the body needs some time to be able to absorb it, to be able to sharpen the tools and get use out of it. So it will take a couple of days, and if you feed too much, there will be diarrhea and it will look dark and soft because that means too much nutrients and they're just going back out. Not a bad thing. If you now stop and take that away again because you say, oh, no, there was diarrhea, then you just confused the pancreas, you just confused your pet, and nothing, no improvement is happening. Like, you have to learn from these things. Second thing that happens possibly, if you feed something very good for a pet with like skin issues, for example, a lot of omega-3, what happens, skin will be like, yay, push everything out that was there, get the new stuff. What you will see is rashes, boils, more issues. You'll go back to the vet and go for more steroids. Don't do it, go slow. Lastly, if you feed better, we talked about the microbiome, like those organisms in the gut. So you feed better, what happens is the bad bacteria, they get weaker. They don't get the sugar that they want. They're hangry. They're like, oh, what is this? And then the bacteria that we do want, they're like now like gearing up. They're like getting strong. So they're going to eat the food away from the bad bacteria and they're going to kill the bad bacteria. When bad bacteria die, they release toxic gases because they're vile. Even in death, these bacteria are bad. So they release toxic gases. And if you basically kill too many of the bad guys at once, then you'll have too many toxic gases inside. It needs to go slow with natural solutions. Medication is quick, but it's also quick to stop working. But food will, you are rebuilding the foundation. You're rebuilding cells. You give it some time, but it'll show anyway. Okay, definitely gonna share this. 3 different. Yeah, we have different soy-based probiotics because, again, like every pet is different. We have the digestive relief sampler where you can get 3 times 20 grams. And then you can just add, the first one every other day, just a little sprinkle. See, maybe, some people have told me that the Happy Gut Plus has helped like with the first serving against some like mucus and stool. For my pets, the Gut Rescue has worked better. It's all about your individual pet, but as all our products are natural, there's no side effects, there's nothing you can do wrong, except for feeding too much, but you at a fast rate. So basically, just try around, anything new you try is a good thing. So just try different ones. How do you use soy-based probiotics when the pet doesn't like anything mixed in food? Come on, when the pet doesn't eat anything mixed in food, then I know that you already have techniques to convince them. I have the same issue with mine. For me, it's chicken. They absolutely adore. So I will either just take some minced chicken and I'll put it inside, make a meatball, give it as a treat, and by the time they realize, that weird little move, by the time the powder is already done. And if you're lucky, over time, by you kind of like tricking them into eating something, they might get into it. Also, if you think, oh, my pet doesn't like this particular treat, they might just like it differently. So, for example, my girl will not eat a quail without feathers, loves the quail with feathers. like she will not eat raw quail, only dehydrated. She has all these particularities. My boy, yesterday I have a whole jar of insects and rabbit laddu because I want them to eat them so bad. My girl happily eats. My boy has been neglecting them, completely straight refused. And rabbit bites, on the other hand, my boy loves, which is almost the same thing. And what I did yesterday is I was collecting all the rabbit insect bites that I had extra, and I was about to go out and give it to some streeties so that not all of it goes to my girl. And I dropped one and I stepped on it and it crumbled. And my boy, licked everything up. And I was like, dude, it's not that he doesn't like rabbit insect bites. He just is a drama little baby and he wants it broken down smaller. So just, try things, or go, like what I do also is I dust the meat that they really like in powders and stuff. Like, just figure out how to trick your own pet. Ashwini, yeah, soy-based probiotics are the best, in my opinion, and in my store. But obviously fermented foods or kefir or something like that is also great. If you are in a rural location, you can go to get raw milk and stuff. Please, raw goat milk or fermented goat milk, fabulous. Canned food for cats to... can I feed canned food as a treat? Obviously, it's nothing is horrible. Like, I will not tell you for anything, no, don't do it. Just you have to be aware of like a balance, and you have to be aware of that you cannot just feed chicken and rice and some Marie biscuits, and some canned food is not going to do it. If the canned food is canned sardines, then it's a whole different story. You just have to kind of be a little bit aware of supplying everything, because when you supply all the nutrients, you also have a strong body that can deal with a little bit of not so good stuff. And lastly, happiness is also health, right? Like, so if my mom always used to tell me, if you want to have a beer, like, yeah, that's not healthy, but go and have it because it makes you happy, like on a Friday night to sit in the garden and have a beer, then that's also building your health, because you need to be happy to be healthy. So if there's a Marie biscuit or some canned treats or some rice in the food, something where you like, my dog just absolutely adores it, or my cat really, really wants it, then just try to match and give them a remedy at the same time, kind of, If you feed a lot of rice, then feed some soy-based probiotics, feed some more fish, stuff like that. It's all not that crazy. How many meals a day to your beagle? Well, it depends on your beagle. How much do they move? How much do they run? Like, do they have bile issues? How old are they? What are they used to? I do 1 meal a day in the evening for my girl. You can try, just try. Just see if your pet is like healthy or happy or unhappy about getting just 1 meal. Do they just happily eat their whole food, or are they just really, really hungry in between? You can figure it out, and you can also feed like a smaller snack for breakfast. Not every meal has to be balanced. You can feed some boneless meat in the morning, and then some like organ and meat and veggies in the afternoon, and a chew bone in the night. It's all about your thing. Foodie overweight, I'm assuming too much starch. I'm assuming there's any sort of rice in the diet. Rice is sugar. Rice will make them fat. So lean meat cuts, stuff like that, all the time hungry. Well, again, then you need more nourishing food. If you feed white rice all the time, he'll always be hungry, he will always get fatter. You have to feed, like, I promise, just get a bag of the fish chewies from Canada India and see, or get just a kg of boneless meat, chicken and fish, and portion it and put it in the bowl along. I'm sure it will make a difference. Real protein keeps them full. It's about the glycemic index. I have to, I think, stop this, because I think you can't save it otherwise. So I'm just gonna abruptly leave you and ghost you. Thank you so much for everything. Bye, guys.